What if I told you that the fight that almost destroyed my marriage, the one where we screamed about a pair of $200 sneakers in our tiny Texas kitchen, actually saved it? Not because we stopped arguing, but because we learned something most couples never do. If you're tired of feeling stuck, in English, in love, in life, and you're about to give up, stay. This real story might change how you see conflict forever. The $200 fight that almost broke. Let me start with a confession. Not the pretty, Instagram quote kind of confession. The ugly one. The one I used to be ashamed of. I used to check my husband's bank account like a spy. Not in secret, well, kind of in secret. I'd open the banking app on my phone while he was in the shower. Scroll through every transaction. Mentally highlight anything that looked wrong. And then I'd wait. Wait for the right moment to bring it up. A moment when he couldn't run away. Like when he was brushing his teeth. Or driving. Or trying to watch the last 10 minutes of a movie. That's toxic. I know that now. But back then, I told myself I was being responsible. I was protecting our future. I was the adult in the room. Sound familiar? If you've ever felt that tightness in your chest when you see a charge you didn't expect, congratulations. You're human. And you're about to see yourself in this story. It was a Tuesday. Nothing special. The dishwasher was making that weird sound it always made. My son, Leo, who was 6 at the time, was watching a cartoon about a lime that wanted to be a lemon. I don't know. Kids' shows are weird. I opened the app. Scrolled. Stopped. $198. 76, Dick's Sporting Goods. I blinked. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone stole his card. Maybe the universe was testing me. But deep down, I knew. Mark had bought another pair of running shoes. That would be pair number 6. 6 pairs of shoes for 2 feet. I did the math. It didn't math. My neck got hot. You know that heat? The one that starts at your collarbone and climbs up behind your ears like a slow fire? That's your amygdala talking. Your brain's alarm system. It doesn't care about logic. It only cares about threat. And to my brain, an unexpected $200 charge wasn't a purchase. It was a predator. I walked into the kitchen. Mark was standing by the sink, eating peanut butter straight from the jar with a spoon. Another small crime I usually ignored. But tonight? Tonight, the peanut butter was also evidence. Mark, I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. That's how you know someone is really angry, when they sound like a robot. Yeah? Did you buy something at Dick's? He didn't stop eating. Oh. Yeah. New running shoes. They were on sale. 40% off. I waited for the rest of the sentence. That part never came. Instead, he said, I saved $130. No, I said. You spent almost $200. That's not saving. That's spending. Here's where it gets interesting. For the next 7 minutes, I know it was 7 because I looked at the microwave clock, we had the kind of argument that every couple has at least once. The one where you're not really fighting about the thing. You're fighting about what the thing represents. You spend $80 on your hair, he said. That's every 3 months. You spend $50 on face cream. My face is dry. Your face is fine. You just like buying expensive things and then judging me for buying things. That one stung. Because it was partially true. I opened my mouth to say something really smart and hurtful. But then I stopped. Not because I was mature. Because I literally didn't have a comeback. My brain was frozen between fight and cry. So I did the worst possible thing. I went silent. Have you ever had a fight that ended not with a bang, but with a door closing quietly? That's worse. Because quiet doors don't slam shut. They just seal. And then you're on opposite sides of a wall that wasn't there before. Mark walked outside. Our backyard has this old plastic chair that's cracked on one side. He sat there. For 2 hours. I stayed in the kitchen. I opened the bank app again. Closed it. Opened it. Closed it. Like checking a wound to see if it's still bleeding. 2 hours of silence is not really silence. It's a conversation you're having with yourself. And that conversation is mean. My brain said things like, he doesn't respect you. He's never going to change. You married the wrong person. None of that was true. But silence doesn't care about truth. Silence amplifies fear. Around 10 p.m., my body needed to do something. So I boiled water for tea. Chamomile. The official drink of people who are pretending to be calm. The back door opened. Mark walked in. Didn't say anything at first. Just stood there. Leaning against the fridge. The same fridge. The same kitchen. The same two people who had screamed at each other over running shoes. Then he spoke. I'm sorry for yelling. I wanted to say, you should be sorry. But something in his face stopped me. He looked tired. Not sleepy tired. Soul tired. I'm sorry too, I said. And then, I don't know why, I said the truth. I'm not really mad about the shoes, Mark. Then what are you mad about? I took a breath. The kind you take before jumping off a diving board. When I was 12, my dad lost his job. For 6 months, we didn't know if we'd lose our house. I remember my mom putting things back at the grocery store. I remember them whispering at night. And I remember thinking, if we had saved more, this wouldn't be happening. I was crying now. Not pretty crying. The ugly kind with snot. So every time you buy something without telling me, my body doesn't see a pair of shoes. It sees that 12-year-old girl. It sees the fear. And it screams at me to stop you. Mark listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't say, you're overreacting. He just listened. Then he said, my turn. And he told me about being the poor kid in a rich town. One pair of shoes for the whole school year. The other kids laughing. His parents divorcing when he was 14 because they couldn't stop fighting about money. So when I buy shoes now, he said, it's not about the shoes. It's about telling that kid, we're okay now. We can breathe. And just like that, the fight wasn't a fight anymore. It was two wounded people showing each other their scars. That night didn't fix everything. We still had more arguments. But it taught me something I'll never forget. Conflict is not the enemy of love. Hidden stories are the enemy. The shoes weren't the problem. The silence was. The assumptions were. The, I'll just check the bank app in secret, was. So here's my question for you, and I really want you to think about it. What are you fighting about on the surface? That's really about something deeper? Because until you answer that question, you'll keep having the same fight. Over and over. New shoes. New haircuts. New charges on the bank app. But the moment you stop defending your position and start sharing your story, that's the moment love gets real. Two different worlds, one bank account. So there we were. Two people. One kitchen island. One half-empty cup of chamomile tea that had gone cold an hour ago. And the truth so obvious that I still can't believe we missed it for 3 whole years. Mark and I never learned how to talk about money before we got married. I know. It sounds insane. We talked about everything else. Where to live. Whether to have kids. Who would clean the bathroom, still me, by the way, some fights never end. But money? We just assumed we were on the same team. Spoiler alert, we weren't even playing the same sport. Here's what I've learned since that Tuesday night fight. And I'm telling you this because I don't want you to make the same mistake. In America, money is weirdly personal. Almost uncomfortably personal. People will tell you about their anxiety meds before they tell you their credit card debt. Couples will move in together, share a bed, share a dog, share a Costco membership, but keep separate bank accounts for 10 years. Sometimes forever. That was not my world. I grew up in a culture where marriage meant one jar. One bank account. One financial destiny. My parents didn't have fun money or personal spending accounts. They had a ceramic jar shaped like a pig. That was it. When money went in, it was our money. When money came out, it was our decision. So when Mark and I combined our finances after the wedding, I thought, great. We're a real team now. He thought, great. Now someone is going to question every single purchase I make for the rest of my life. Neither of us said that out loud. And that silence, that tiny, polite, I don't want to start a fight, silence, was the real problem. Let me show you what was happening inside our two very different brains. Brain 1, my brain, the protector. I see money as armor. Every dollar saved is a shield against disaster. When I check our bank account, I'm not seeing numbers. I'm seeing a movie. A disaster movie where the car breaks down, the water heater explodes, someone gets sick. And the only thing standing between us and total chaos is a pile of cash. This is not crazy. Psychologists call it financial scarcity mindset. It usually comes from childhood instability. Remember my dad losing his job when I was 12? My brain never forgot. Even now, with 2 incomes. My amygdala, that little almond-shaped alarm system deep in your brain, still screams, danger, every time money leaves the account. Here's a fun fact, your brain can't tell the difference between a financial threat and a physical threat. A $200 charge on a credit card activates the same neural pathways as seeing a snake in your kitchen. That's why your heart races. That's why you get hot. That's why you say things you regret. You're not being dramatic. You're being human. Brain 2, Mark's brain, the freedom seeker. Mark doesn't see money as armor. He sees money as air. Freedom to breathe. Freedom to buy the shoes he wanted as a kid. Freedom to eat at a restaurant without calculating the tip before ordering. Freedom to say, I work hard, so I deserve this. But here's the part one got wrong for years. Mark isn't actually reckless with money. He pays bills on time. He saves for big things. He never once suggested we skip rent for sneakers. The problem wasn't his spending. The problem was my reaction to his spending. And his reaction to my reaction. And neither of us knew how to name what was happening. So we just kept having the same fight. Over and over. Different items. Same feelings. Shoes. Haircuts. Water bottles. Face cream. A $30 video game. A $15 candle. None of it was about the thing. All of it was about the fear underneath. Here's where American culture makes everything harder. In the U.S., money conversations are often seen as rude, controlling, or suspicious. You're not supposed to ask your partner how much they make until things get serious. You're not supposed to check their receipts. You're not supposed to say, hey, that purchase makes me feel unsafe. Instead, people say nothing. And then they explode. A study from Brigham Young University followed 1,000 couples for years. Want to know the number one predictor of divorce? Not cheating. Not chores. Not in-laws. It's arguing about money early in the relationship. But here's the twist, it's not the arguing itself. It's how you argue. And whether you've ever talked about your money stories. What's a money story? I'm so glad you asked. A money story is the hidden belief you carry about cash. You didn't choose it. You absorbed it. From your parents. From your childhood. From the year your family struggled or the year your family had plenty. Some people's money story is, money is dirty. Some say, money equals love. Some say, money is meant to be enjoyed before you die. My money story was, money disappears when you're not watching. Mark's was, money proves I'm not that poor kid anymore. Two different stories. One bank account. And no conversation about how to make them work together. So here's what we did wrong, and please learn from us. Mistake 1, we assumed. We assumed we had the same goals. We did not. I wanted to save for a house. He wanted to save for experiences. Both are valid. But we never ranked them. We never even named them. Mistake 2, we hid small things. He hid his shoe purchases. I hid my frustration. Hiding creates shame. Shame creates distance. Distance creates loneliness. Loneliness creates more fights. Mistake 3, we didn't have a system. We just had a bank account and two very different brains fighting for control. No rules. No check-ins. No, hey, let's talk about money before one of us spends $200 on sneakers. After that Tuesday night fight, we didn't fix everything overnight. But we did one simple thing that changed everything. We sat down on a Saturday morning. No phones. No kids. No TV. And we answered 3 questions. 1. What did money mean to you when you were a child? 2. What are you afraid of when it comes to money right now? 3. What's one small rule we can both agree on this week? That third question saved us. Because small was the key. Not, we will never fight again. Not, you will stop buying shoes forever. Just one small rule. Ours was, tell each other before any purchase over $50. No judgment. Just heads up. Sounds simple, right? It wasn't. The first week, Mark forgot. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I said, hey, you forgot. Can we try again? And he said, yeah. Sorry. I'll try harder. That's not a movie ending. That's real life. Slow. Messy. Full of forgetting and remembering and forgetting again. But here's what happened over the next 3 months. The fights didn't stop. But they changed. They got shorter. Less loud. We started laughing in the middle of them sometimes. Because we both knew, we're not fighting about money. We're fighting about 2 kids who grew up scared. And scared kids just need to know they're safe.
The silence that taught me to listen. Let me describe something you've probably felt but never named. It's the period after fight. Not the fight itself. The after. When the words have been thrown like plates against a wall. When the door is closed, not slammed, just closed. And you're standing in a room that suddenly feels too big. Or too small. Or both. That's where I was after the shoe argument. Standing in my kitchen. Staring at a cold cup of tea. Listening to the sound of nothing. Mark was outside. on that cracked plastic chair, in the dark, for 2 hours. And I was inside, also in the dark, also alone, also pretending I was fine. Here's what no one tells you about silence. It's not empty. It's loud. It's filled with every mean thought your brain can generate. And your brain, by the way, is very creative when it's scared. Let me translate what my inner voice said during those 2 hours, because I want you to see how ridiculous and how real it sounded. Minute 5. He doesn't respect you. If he respected you, he would have told you about the shoes. Minute 20. You married the wrong person. A good husband wouldn't do this. Minute 45. This is how it starts. First shoes, then bigger things. Then one day you wake up and you have nothing. Minute 80. Just go to bed. Don't talk to him. Let him sit out there forever. None of that was true. But in the silence, truth doesn't matter. Only fear matters. And fear is a liar. A very convincing liar. Here's the science part, because I know you're here to learn English and understand real life. So let me explain what was happening inside my brain. Not because I'm a neuroscientist, but because I read 12 articles at 3 a.m. afterward, and I'm going to save you the trouble. When you have a conflict with someone you love, your brain releases stress hormones. Cortisol, adrenaline, the same chemicals that would help you run from a bear. Except there's no bear. There's just a person in the other room who forgot to tell you about sneakers. Your prefrontal cortex, the smart, logical part of your brain, literally shuts down during high conflict. That's why you say things you regret. That's why you can't find the right words. That's why you stomp off and sit in the dark. You're not being immature. Your smart brain has left the building. Your lizard brain is driving the car. And your lizard brain hates silence. Because in nature, silence means danger. A silent forest means a predator is near. So your lizard brain fills the silence with worst-case scenarios. Over and over. Like a song you can't turn off. That was me. For 2 hours. Sitting in my kitchen. Listening to a song called Everything is Falling Apart. But here's the part one almost missed. Mark was also sitting in silence. On the other side of the wall. Having his own inner concert. His song was different. But it was just as loud.
I didn't know that yet.
I assumed he was out there feeling nothing. Maybe even feeling good. Because he got his shoes, right?
He won.
That's what silence does. It makes you assume the worst about the other person. Because you can't hear their inner voice. You can only hear yours. So let me tell you what Mark told me later, when we finally talked. Minute 5 of his silence. She's never going to trust me. Every time I buy something for myself, it's a crime. Minute 20. I work 50 hours a week. I deserve one thing. Why can't she see that? Minute 45. My dad was right. Marriage is just someone controlling your money. Minute 80. Maybe she doesn't love me. Maybe she loves her idea of a perfect saver husband. And I'm not him. See what happened? Same silence. Same 2 hours. Same love. But 2 completely different stories. Both of us feeling hurt. Both of us feeling alone. Both of us convinced the other person was the problem. That's the trap. And most couples never get out of it. They have a fight. Then silence. Then more silence. Then the silence becomes a habit. Then one day they wake up and realize they haven't had a real conversation in months. Years. The silence didn't break us. But it could have. Easily. Here's what I did around minute 115. I stopped staring at the tea. I stood up. I walked to the back door. I opened it. Mark was still sitting there. The crack in the plastic chair was digging into his leg. He didn't look up. I said, "It's cold out here." He said, "I know." I said, "Come inside. I'm making tea." He didn't move for a few seconds. Then he stood up, followed me in. We didn't solve anything in that moment. But we did something more important. We opened the door. The silence had closed it. We opened it again. That's the secret. It's not about never fighting. It's about never letting the silence become permanent. It's about being the one who walks to the door.
Even when you don't want to.
Especially when you don't want to. In the next few minutes, while the water boiled and the tea steeped, we said the real things. The things we had been hiding. His childhood. My childhood. The fear.
The shame.
The sneakers that were never really about sneakers. But that moment at the door, that was the hardest part. Because silence is comfortable after a while. It becomes a habit. Breaking a silence feels riskier than starting a fight. Here's what I learned from that night. Silence is not peace. Silence is a ceasefire. And a ceasefire is not the same as a solution. True peace comes from talking. From saying the scary things. From admitting that you're afraid. From listening to someone else's fear without trying to win. Most people think love is about never hurting each other. That's not true. Love is about hurting each other because you will, and then choosing to stay. Choosing to walk to the door. Choosing to boil the water. Choosing to say, come inside. That night didn't fix our marriage, but it saved it from becoming two people living in the same house, separated by a wall of silence. 2 years later, we still fight. About money. About chores. About whose turn it is to wake up early with the kids. But we don't do silence anymore. Not the long kind. Because we both know silence is where love goes to die. The water boiled. That was the first sound we heard after the silence. A small, ordinary sound. The kettle clicking off. Steam rising. A tea bag dropping into a mug. Funny how normal things feel strange when you've been fighting. Like you've forgotten how to be two people in a kitchen together. I made 2 cups. Chamomile for me. Black tea for him. With honey, because that's how he's always taken it. And I knew that even when I was angry, love remembers the small things. Even when love is hurt, we sat at the kitchen island, not touching, not looking at each other, just holding our mugs, breathing. And then, without planning it, I started talking, not about the shoes, not about the money, about something I had never told him, something I had never even told myself out loud. When I was 12 years old, I said, my dad lost his job. Mark looked up, not interrupting, just listening. It wasn't his fault. The company closed. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that for 6 months, my family didn't know if we would keep our house. I took a sip of tea. The chamomile was too hot. I didn't care. I remember my mom standing at the grocery store checkout, putting things back, one by one. The cookies, the good cheese, the name brand cereal. She didn't cry. She just put them back. And I stood there, pretending not to notice. My voice cracked. I hate when my voice cracks. I remember my parents whispering at night, thinking I couldn't hear. But I heard everything. Words like mortgage and late fees and what are we going to do? I remember thinking if we had saved more, this wouldn't be happening. If my dad had been more careful. If my mom had worked more. If someone had just controlled the money better, we wouldn't be standing at that checkout counter putting back cookies. Mark didn't say anything. He just reached over and put his hand on my wrist. Not holding. Just there. So now, I said, every time you spend money without telling me, my body doesn't see a pair of shoes. It sees my mom's face at that checkout counter. It feels that knot in my stomach. And it screams at me to stop you. Not because I don't trust you. Because I'm still that 12-year-old girl who's terrified of losing everything. I was crying now. The kind of crying that isn't pretty. The kind that comes from somewhere deep and old. I'm not trying to control you, Mark. I'm trying to protect us. But I don't know how to do it without sounding like a monster. That was my confession. Not, I'm sorry. Not, you're right. Just the truth. Raw and messy, and not very articulate. Here's what I learned in that moment. The truth doesn't have to be perfectly said. It just has to be real. You don't need advanced English to say, I'm scared. You don't need perfect grammar to say, I've been hurt before. You just need courage. And maybe a cup of tea. Mark was quiet for a long time. Not the bad silence. The good silence. The kind where someone is processing, feeling, choosing their words. Then he said, my turn. And he told me his own childhood money story. The one he had never shared. He grew up in a small town in Oregon. His dad worked construction. His mom stayed home. Money was always tight. Not poor, he said, but watching every penny pour. Other kids had new shoes at the start of the school year, he said. I had whatever was on sale at Payless. And they laughed. Kids are cruel, you know? They notice everything.
He paused, looked at his tea.
One year, I wanted a pair of Nikes. The white ones with the red swoosh. Everyone had them. I begged my parents for months. And finally, my dad said yes. But he said, these have to last you the whole year. You get one pair. I made them last. I cleaned them every night. I didn't play soccer because I didn't want to scuff them.
And you know what happened?
After 6 months, they still fell apart. The sole came off during gym class. Everyone saw. He laughed. But it wasn't a happy laugh. So now when I buy shoes, it's not about the shoes. It's about telling that kid, see? You're not that boy anymore. You can buy whatever shoes you want. And no one can laugh at you.
I stared at him.
All this time, I thought his spending was carelessness, recklessness, a lack of respect for our goals. It was none of those things. It was a little boy trying to heal. That's the thing about conflict. Most of the time, we're not fighting each other. We're fighting old ghosts. We're fighting the version of ourselves that was scared, or shamed, or lonely. And the person across the table? They're fighting their own ghosts. The problem isn't that we have wounds. Everyone has wounds. The problem is that we don't share them. We hide them. We dress them up as anger. And then we attack each other for things that have nothing to do with the present moment. That night, Mark and I didn't solve our money problems. We didn't create a budget. We didn't return the shoes. But we did something more important. We stopped seeing each other as enemies and started seeing each other as humans. Here's a simple truth I want you to write down somewhere. On your phone, on a sticky note, on your mirror. Every frustrating behavior in your partner is connected to an old wound. Not an excuse, but an explanation. Your partner spends too much? Maybe they grew up with nothing. Your partner saves too much? Maybe they grew up scared. Your partner controls everything? Maybe they grew up in chaos. Your partner avoids everything? Maybe they grew up being punished for mistakes. Once you know the wound, the behavior stops being annoying and starts being understandable. And understanding is the first step toward change. That night I didn't say, okay, you can buy all the shoes you want. And Mark didn't say, okay, I'll never spend money again. What we said was, now I get it. Now I see you. Now, let's figure this out together. That's the difference between a fight that destroys love and a fight that deepens it. Destruction hides the wound. Deepening reveals it. In the next part, I'll tell you exactly what we did next. The 3 small rules that changed everything. The $100 fun money that saved our marriage. And why most couples give up right before the breakthrough. 3 small rules that saved us. So there we were. 2 people. 2 mugs. Two childhood wounds sitting on the kitchen island between us like uninvited guests who had finally introduced themselves. We had told the truth. The real truth. Not the angry truth. Not the defensive truth. The ugly, tender, I didn't even know I was holding this truth. And here's what surprised me. Nothing magically changed. I know. That's not the Hollywood version. In the movies, the couple cries, hugs, music swells, and suddenly they never fight again. They look at each other with soft eyes and walk into the sunset, holding hands over a joint bank account. Real life doesn't work that way. Real life is messy. Real life is the next morning, when you're both tired from crying and there are still dirty dishes in the sink. And you have to figure out what's for breakfast and oh yeah, the shoes are still in the closet. So, what do you do after the confession? After you've seen each other's wounds? Do you just go back to the same patterns? Or do you actually build something new? We chose the second one. But not because we were strong. Because we were exhausted. Exhausted from having the same fight for 3 years. Exhausted from the silent treatment. Exhausted from pretending. That exhaustion was a gift. It made us willing to try something different. Here's what we did the next Saturday morning. We sat down at the same kitchen island. No tea this time. Just a notebook and a pen. And we made 3 small rules. Not big, dramatic promises. Small, boring, almost embarrassing rules. But they saved us. Rule 1. The $100 fun money rule. Each of us gets $100 every month.
Cash.
Real paper money. And that money can be spent on anything. Anything at all. Without permission. Without judgment. Without checking the bank app. I hated this rule at first. $100 felt like a lot. What if he spent it all on shoes? What if I spent it on face cream and then felt guilty? But Mark said something that changed my mind. He said, if we don't have money that's truly mine and truly yours, then every single purchase feels like asking for a cookie. I don't want to ask for cookies. I'm an adult. He was right. The problem wasn't the spending. The problem was the permission. The feeling that every dollar belonged to us and therefore needed our approval. That's exhausting. That's how you turn a partnership into a prison. So $100 each. No questions asked. If Mark wants to buy 6 pairs of shoes with his $100, fine. He'll only get 1 pair because shoes cost more than $100, but you get the point. The freedom was the point. Rule 2. The $50 heads-up rule. Any purchase over $50 that comes from our shared account, the one for rent, groceries, utilities, savings, requires a heads-up. Not permission. Just a heads-up. A text. A quick conversation. Hey, I'm about to buy this thing for $75. Just letting you know. That's it.
No lecture. No interrogation.
Just information. Why does this work? Because the pain of a surprise purchase isn't the money. It's the surprise. Your brain hates surprises when it comes to safety. Money feels like safety. So a surprise $200 charge feels like a threat. A heads-up turns that surprise into a prediction. And predictions don't trigger the amygdala.
Simple biology.
But we didn't know that back then. We just knew that a heads-up made me feel respected. And feeling respected made me less likely to freak out. Rule 3. The Sunday 7 p.m. check-in. Every Sunday at 7 p.m., we sit down for 15 minutes. Not an hour. Not a fight. Just 15 minutes. We open the bank app. We look at what we spent. We look at what we saved. And we say 3 sentences. Here's what felt good this week. Here's what felt stressful. Here's one small adjustment for next week. That's it.
No blaming. No fixing.
Just sharing. This rule was Mark's idea. He said, I hate talking about money, but I hate fighting about money more. So, let's make it a boring appointment. Like going to the dentist. He was right again. When something becomes a routine, it stops being emotional.
It just becomes a task.
And tasks don't hurt. These 3 rules sound so simple that you might be rolling your eyes. That's it? That's what saved your marriage?
Yes.
Because the problem was never our finances. The problem was our communication. And communication isn't fixed by grand gestures. It's fixed by small, consistent habits. Think about it. When you learn a new language, which is why you're here, right? You don't become fluent in one day. You learn a few words. You practice every day. You make mistakes. You try again. Small habits. Repeated over time. Fighting well is exactly the same skill. You learn to say, I need a heads up instead of you're so selfish. You learn to say, I'm scared instead of you're ruining us. You learn to sit down on Sunday at 7 p.m. even when you don't want to. Small habits. Repeated over time. Here's what happened in the first month after we made these rules. Week 1. Mark forgot to give a heads up on a $60 purchase. I felt my neck get hot. But instead of attacking, I said, Hey, you forgot. Can you try next time?
He said, Sorry. Yes.
Week 2. I spent my $100 fun money on a candle and a book. I felt guilty. But I didn't return them. I kept them. And I realized guilt is also a habit. A bad one. Week 3. Sunday check-in took 7 minutes because we had nothing to fight about. We just looked at the numbers and said, looks fine. Week 4, we had a small fight about something else, not money. And we laughed afterward. Because we were remembering how we used to fight about money. And how we don't anymore. That's the thing about small rules. They don't just solve the problem. They change the atmosphere. They make the house feel safer. And when the house feels safe, love can grow. But here's the part one haven't told you yet. The hardest part wasn't making the rules. The hardest part was trusting them. Because my brain, the scared 12-year-old brain, kept whispering, this is too easy. He's going to break the rules. You're going to get hurt again. That voice didn't go away for months. I had to learn to ignore it, to prove it wrong. Every Sunday, every heads up, every $100 fun money bill. Trust isn't built in one conversation. Trust is built in the 5,000 small moments after the conversation. In part 6, I'll tell you about the fight we had 3 months later, the one that almost made us give up on the rules. And the one sentence that kept us going. The fight that almost made us quit. We had a good run. 3 months. 12 Sundays. 12 check-ins. A dozen heads-up texts. For shoe purchases I knew about beforehand. 2 candles I bought with my fun money and didn't feel guilty about. It felt like we had cracked the code. Like we were the smart couple who figured out how to fight without destroying each other. I even started giving advice to my friends. Just make 3 rules. It's so simple. Famous last words. Month 4. Tuesday again.
Of course it was Tuesday. Tuesdays hate me.
I came home from work tired. Not regular tired. The kind of tired where your bones feel heavy and your patience is a single very thin thread. The kids had been fighting all afternoon. The baby had a cold. I hadn't eaten since 11 a.m. Mark was already home. He had picked up the kids, made dinner, done 3 loads of laundry.
He was a hero that day.
A genuine, gold star husband. And then I saw it. On the kitchen counter. A box. A small blue box. From Best Buy. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. The shape told me everything. A new video game controller. The fancy kind.
$80.
No heads-up text. No mention at Sunday check-in.
Just a box on the counter, like a little blue bomb.
My neck got hot. My chest tightened. The 12-year-old girl woke up and started screaming inside my head. Asterisk, he broke the rule. He broke the rule. He doesn't respect you. The rules don't work. Nothing works. You're going to be poor forever because you married someone who can't follow a simple $50 heads-up rule. Asterisk. I stood there, staring at the box, my hand shaking slightly. Mark was in the living room, reading to our son. I could hear his voice.
Calm.
Gentle. Reading about a bunny who lost his watch. And I was in the kitchen, 5 feet away, turning into a pressure cooker of old fear. Here's what I almost did. I almost picked up the box and walked into the living room and held it in front of his face. I almost said, "What is this? Where was the heads up?
Do the rules not apply to you?
I almost started the same fight. The exact same fight. Different item. Same script.
But something stopped me. I don't know what it was.
Maybe the exhaustion. Maybe the 3 months of practice. Maybe the memory of him sitting on that cracked plastic chair in the dark. I put the box down. I walked to the bathroom. I closed the door. I sat on the edge of the tub. And I set a timer on my phone for 5 minutes. 5 minutes to feel my feelings without acting on them. That's a skill, by the way. A very hard skill. Your brain will tell you that you need to act now. That if you wait, you'll lose your chance. That silence means weakness. That's a lie. Here's what I did in those 5 minutes. I asked myself 3 questions. Question 1. What am I actually feeling right now? Not I'm angry. Go deeper. Angry is a surface feeling. Underneath anger is almost always fear or hurt. I was afraid. Afraid that the rules didn't work. Afraid that I was stupid for trusting them. Afraid that Mark didn't actually respect me. Afraid that I was back at the beginning. Question 2. Is that fear about now or about then? The then. 90% of that fear was from when I was 12 years old. Standing at the grocery store. Watching my mom put back the cookies. The present moment, a blue box on a counter, did not actually threaten my safety. We had savings. We had food. We had a house. The $80 controller was not going to make us homeless. But my brain couldn't tell the difference. Because brains are stupid sometimes. Question 3. What do I need right now? Not, what do I want to say to punish him? Not what would make me feel in control. Just, what do I need? I needed to feel respected. I needed to know that the rules still mattered. And I needed to not have a screaming fight in front of our kids. The timer went off. I washed my face. I took a breath. I walked into the living room. Mark looked up from the book. He saw my face. He knew something was wrong. I said, "Can we talk in the kitchen for 1 minute?" He put the book down. Told our son he'd be right back. Followed me. I pointed at the box. He looked at it. Then at me. Then his face changed. He remembered. "Oh," he said. "Oh no. I forgot." "It's $80, I said. My voice was quiet. Not angry. Just tired. "I know.
I'm sorry.
I bought it on my lunch break. I meant to text you. And then work got crazy. And then I had to pick up the kids. And I just forgot." He wasn't making excuses. He was explaining. And the explanation was actually true.
He had been a hero that day. Dinner. Laundry. Kids.
He was exhausted too. Here's the old me would have said, "That's not good enough. You should have remembered. You always forget." Here's what the new me said, "I believe you. And I'm not angry. But I need you to hear something." He nodded. When I saw that box, my brain went back to being 12 years old. I felt unsafe. Not because of the money. Because the rule is how I know we're a team. And when the rule breaks, even by accident, I feel alone. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You're not alone. I'm right here. I forgot. But I'm still here. The rule isn't more important than us. The rule is for us. So, let's fix it together. We didn't return the controller. That would have been punishing. And punishment is not partnership. Instead, he put it in his fun money category for that month. He had already spent $40 of his $100. So the controller used the remaining $60 of his fun money, and the extra $20 came from next month's fun money. A small, boring, logistical solution. No fight. No silent treatment.
No doors closing.
Just two exhausted people who had learned that the goal isn't perfection. The goal is repair. Here's what I want you to understand. 3 months of perfect rule following didn't teach us how to fight. That moment did. The moment he forgot. The moment I almost lost it. The moment I chose to sit on the tub for 5 minutes instead of screaming. That's how conflict builds love. Not by avoiding mistakes, by repairing mistakes, by proving over and over that you can mess up and still be safe. The $4,000 proof that conflict works. 6 months after the blue box incident. 6 months of Sunday check-ins. 6 months of heads-up texts. 6 months of $100 fun money that I finally stopped feeling guilty about.
Here's what happened.
We saved $4,000. Not because we stopped spending, because we stopped fighting about spending. And when you stop fighting, you stop making emotional purchases. You stop buying a $15 latte to prove you're free. You stop hiding a $30 Amazon box because you're afraid of being judged. You just live. And somehow, at the end of the month, there's money left. $4,000. In 6 months. From 2 people who used to scream at each other over sneakers. I want to say that money changed everything. It did, but not the way you think. We opened a separate savings account. Called it the house fund. Every month, whatever was left after bills and fun money went in there. Sometimes it was $600. Sometimes it was $200. But it always went in. Like a slow, boring heartbeat. And here's the strange part. Watching that number grow didn't make me feel safe because of the number. It made me feel safe because of how we grew it. Together. Without screaming. Without silence. The money was just the proof. The real win was something else. Let me tell you about a Tuesday night because of course it was a Tuesday about 5 months in. Mark came home from work.
He had a small bag.
Not a shopping bag. A paper bag from a bakery. I have something to tell you, he said. My stomach dropped. Old habit. My brain immediately went to, he spent money. He forgot the rule. Here we go again. But then he said, I bought donuts. 3 donuts. $7.50. I'm telling you because it's under $50, so I don't have to give a heads up, but I wanted to tell you anyway. Because I know you like knowing. I stared at him. Donuts. He was telling me about donuts. That's very thoughtful, I said. He shrugged. The rules aren't a prison. They're a language. And I'm learning to speak it. I almost cried. Not because of the donuts. Because of the effort. The remembering. The choosing to include me even when he didn't have to. That's the thing about conflict that builds love. It's not about winning. It's not about being right. It's about building a shared language. A set of small habits that say, over and over, you matter to me. 6 months after that first terrible fight, we had enough saved to look at houses. Real houses. With front porches and backyards, and enough rooms for the kids to stop sharing a wall. We went to an open house on a Sunday. A small 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood. The kitchen had old cabinets, and the carpet was ugly. But there was a tree in the front yard. A big one. The kind you could put a swing on. Mark looked at me. This could be ours, he said. And I believed him. Not because we had the money, because we had the trust. And trust is what turns a house into a home. We didn't buy that house. Someone else offered more. But we didn't fight about it. We just went to the next open house. And the next. Because we had learned something more valuable than any down payment. Here's what I want you to understand. Money is never just money. Money is a mirror. It shows you what you're afraid of, what you're ashamed of, what you're trying to prove. To yourself, to your partner, to the world. Mark's spending was never about shoes. It was about proving he wasn't poor anymore. My saving was never about responsibility. It was about proving I wasn't going to lose everything again. But the real gift was learning to see the ghosts, to name them, to put them on the kitchen island between us and say, "Oh, that's you. You're not me. You're just an old story." Here's a simple exercise that changed everything for us. I want you to try it. Even if you're single. Even if you're not fighting about money. Even if you think your story is different. Don't overthink it. Just write the first thing that comes out. Mark's answer surprised me. Mine surprised him. Because we had never asked. We had only accused. That's the difference between conflict that destroys and conflict that builds. Destruction asks, "What did you do wrong?" Building asks, "What happened to you?" 6 months after the donuts, Mark came home with another pair of shoes. I know. You're laughing. But here's the difference. He told me first. A text. "Hey, shoes on sale. $80. Heads up." I texted back. "Thanks for telling me. Get the blue ones. You look better in blue." He sent a picture of the box. Blue. And a thumbs up. That was it. No fight. No fear. No 12-year-old girl screaming in my head. Because my brain had finally learned something. The shoes weren't a threat. The silence was the threat. And we had ended the silence months ago. We didn't buy that first house. But 2 years later, we bought a different one. With a swing in the front yard. And every time I push my kids on that swing, I think about the fight that almost broke us. And the donuts. And the blue shoes. And I think conflict didn't destroy us. It built us. Because we let it. Why most couples break up after a fight? Let me ask you a question. A real one. Not the kind you answer in your head and move on. How many couples do you know who broke up after a fight? Not after cheating. Not after years of unhappiness. After one fight. One stupid, unnecessary, maybe even small fight. I can name 5.
Just from my own life.
A fight about dishes. A fight about being late. A fight about a text message. A fight about money. Always money. And here's what's strange. Those fights weren't different from ours. They weren't bigger or worse. They were the same. 2 people. 2 wounds. 1 stupid trigger. But those couples didn't make it.
We did. Why?
I spent a lot of time asking that question. Reading. Researching. Staying up too late on psychology websites while Mark slept next to me, snoring peacefully, probably dreaming about shoes. Here's what I learned. And it's going to change how you see every fight you ever have. The science part, don't worry, I'll make it fun. Your brain has 2 modes. I'm going to simplify this because you're not in a neuroscience lecture. You're watching a YouTube video about love and conflict. But stay with me. Mode 1. Safety mode. This is when your brain feels calm, connected, safe. In this mode, you can listen. You can compromise. You can say, "Tell me more," instead of, "You're wrong." Your prefrontal cortex, the smart, logical part, is in charge. Mode 2, threat mode. This is when your brain feels attacked,
Scared.
unsafe. In this mode, your amygdala takes over. The amygdala doesn't speak English. It speaks fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. It doesn't care about your partner's feelings. It cares about survival. Here's the problem. Most couples spend their entire relationship in threat mode during conflict. They don't even know there's another option. When you feel threatened, you attack. Or you shut down. Or you run away. And your partner, also in threat mode, does the same thing. So you're two scared animals circling each other, neither one able to say, "I'm scared." That's not a relationship. That's a hostage situation. The 3 ways couples die. After reading way too many studies and watching way too many real-life couples fall apart, I noticed 3 patterns. 3 ways that conflict kills love. And none of them are about the money or the dishes or the text message. Death 1. Escalation. You start with "you bought shoes" and end with "you never loved me." Every fight becomes a bomb. Every word is a weapon. Nothing is small anymore. You don't remember how you got from A to Z. You just know you're exhausted and bleeding. Death 2. Avoidance. You never fight. Sounds peaceful, right? It's not. Avoidance means you swallow every frustration. You say it's fine when it's not fine. You smile while your insides rot. And then one day, you wake up next to a stranger. Because you stopped being real years ago. Death 3. Withdrawal. One person attacks. The other disappears. The attacker gets louder because silence feels like rejection. The withdrawer gets quieter because noise feels like danger. And the gap between you grows until there's no bridge long enough to cross. Our first 2 years, we did all 3. Escalated. Avoided. Withdrew. Like a toxic dance where everyone loses. So, what's the difference? Why did we survive? The difference is one word. And I want you to write this down. Put it on your mirror, your fridge, your phone wallpaper. Repair. Not never fight. Not be perfect. Not read each other's minds. Repair. Repair is what happens after the fight. When you come back to the kitchen. When you make the tea. When you say, "I'm sorry I yelled." Even if you were right. When you say, "I see you're scared." Even if you think they're overreacting. Repair is the bridge across the gap. And most couples don't know how to build it. Why? Because repair requires vulnerability. And vulnerability is terrifying when you're in threat mode. Your amygdala screams, "Don't apologize. That's weakness. They'll attack." But here's the secret. Apologizing isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing you can do. Because it takes more courage to say, "I messed up," than to say, "You messed up." The one question that changes everything. After our fight about the blue box, the controller, remember? I started asking myself one question before every conflict conversation. Do I want to be right, or do I want to be connected? Because you usually can't have both. If I want to be right, I'll list every time Mark forgot the rules. I'll build a case. I'll win the argument. And I'll sleep alone. If I want to be connected, I'll say, "Hey, I felt scared when I saw the box. Can we talk about it?" I won't win. But I won't lose him. Most couples choose right. Because right feels safe. Right gives you power. Right is the drug your ego craves. But right kills love. Every single time. The 4-minute miracle. There's a famous study by John Gottman, the guy who can predict divorce with 94% accuracy just by watching a couple fight for 15 minutes. Creepy, right? He found that the difference between couples who stay together and couples who break up isn't how often they fight. It's what happens in the first 4 minutes of the fight. Couples who stay together start fights softly. They say things like, "Hey, I'm feeling a little stressed about something. Can we talk?" Or, "This might be silly, but..." Or, "I know you didn't mean it, but when you did X, I felt Y." Couples who break up start fights hard. "You always do this. You never listen. What's wrong with you?" Soft start versus hard start. 4 minutes. Everything. We learned to do soft starts. It took practice. Lots of practice.
I still mess up sometimes.
But now, when I mess up, I say, that came out wrong. Let me try again. And Mark says, okay.
I'm listening.
That's repair. That's the bridge. Here's what I want you to remember. Your fights are not the problem. Your inability to repair is the problem. Every couple fights. Every single one. The couples who stay together aren't the ones who figured out how to never argue. They're the ones who figured out how to come back. So next time you're in a fight with your partner, your parent, your friend, ask yourself, do I want to be right or do I want to be connected? And if you choose connection, say this. I don't like how we're talking right now. Can we pause and try again? It's not magic. It's just a door. And doors can be opened. 5 English phrases that saved my marriage. Okay, I made you a promise. A real English lesson, but not the boring kind.
No grammar drills. No verb conjugations.
No staring at a whiteboard while someone says, repeat after me. You're going to learn 5 English phrases. But you're going to learn them the way I learned them, through a fight, through tears, through a kitchen island and a cup of cold tea. Because that's how language actually sticks. Not in a classroom. In life. Here's the truth. When Mark and I started having real conversations, not accusations, not defenses, just real talking, I didn't have the English words for what I was feeling. English is not my first language. And when you're scared, your vocabulary shrinks. You forget words you've known for years. You sound like a child. But I learned.
Slowly.
One phrase at a time. And those phrases saved us. So here they are. 5 English phrases. Each one connected to a moment in our story. Each one something you can use today. Phrase 1. Can we pause? Remember the blue box fight? The video game controller? The moment I almost walked into the living room with the box in my hand, ready to attack? Instead, I went to the bathroom. I sat on the tub. I set a timer. And when I came out, I didn't attack. I said, can we pause for a minute? That's it. 3 words. Can we pause? Here's why this phrase is magic. When you're in a fight, your brain is in threat mode. Your amygdala is driving. You can't think. You can't listen.
You can only react.
Saying, can we pause, is like pulling the emergency brake on a speeding train. It stops the momentum. It gives your prefrontal cortex, your smart brain, time to catch up. You don't need a reason. You don't need to explain. You just need to say those 3 words. Practice it now. Say it out loud. Can we pause? Feel how your shoulders relax a little? That's your nervous system listening. Phrase 2. That came out wrong. Let me try again. I mess up. A lot.
Even now.
Sometimes I open my mouth and the wrong words come out. The angry words. The blaming words. The words from the 12-year-old girl who's still scared. But here's what I learned. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to fix it. So when I say something mean and I say, that came out wrong. Let me try again. Not, I'm sorry you're upset. Not, that's not what I meant. Those are fake apologies. This is real. That came out wrong takes responsibility. Let me try again. Offers a repair. Mark uses this phrase too. One time he said, you're being controlling. Then he saw my face. And he said, that came out wrong. Let me try again. I feel trapped when you check the bank app every day. Can we talk about that?
Same feeling.
Different words. One destroys. One builds. Phrase 3. I hear you. This sounds simple. It's not. Because I hear you doesn't mean I agree with you. It doesn't mean you're right and I'm wrong. It just means I am listening. I am not defending. I am not planning my comeback. I am just hearing you. In our Sunday check-ins, we made a rule. When one person talks, the other person's only job is to say, I hear you at the end. Not to solve. Not to correct. Just to hear. The first few times it felt weird. Awkward. Like we were robots. But then something shifted. Because when you say, I hear you, you're not just moving your mouth. You're making a choice. The choice to stay in the conversation instead of running away.
Try it with someone this week.
Let them talk for 2 minutes. Don't interrupt. Don't fix. Just say, I hear you. Watch what happens to their face. Watch what happens to yours. Phrase 4. Can we try something different? This is the innovation phrase. The problem-solving phrase. The we're on the same team phrase. When the $100 fun money rule wasn't working perfectly because Mark kept accidentally going over and I kept feeling guilty about spending mine, we didn't throw the rule away. We said, can we try something different? We changed it to $50 a week instead of $100 a month. Smaller amounts. Less pressure. It worked better. Can we try something different is not an admission of failure. It's an admission of being human.
Humans experiment. Humans adjust.
Humans try things, fail, and try again. Most couples get stuck because they think there's only one way. The right way. Their way. But when you say, can we try something different? You're opening a door. A door to a third way. A way that belongs to both of you. Phrase 5. I'm not going anywhere. This is the most important one. The anchor. The promise. After every fight, after the yelling, the silence, the tea, the apology, one of us says this. Usually the one who was more wrong. But sometimes both. I'm not going anywhere. Not I forgive you. Not it's fine. Just I'm still here. I chose you yesterday. I choose you today. I'll choose you tomorrow. When Mark said this after the blue box fight, I cried. Because that's what the 12-year-old girl really needed to hear. Not that the money was safe. Not that the rules would be followed perfectly. Just that she wasn't going to be abandoned. I'm not going anywhere is not a phrase you can fake. You have to mean it. And when you mean it, it heals things that logic cannot reach. Here's your English practice for this week. Don't try to memorize all 5.
Pick one.
Just one. Write it on a sticky note. Put it on your bathroom mirror. Say it out loud every morning for 7 days. Then use it. In a real conversation. With your partner. Your friend. Your parent. Even yourself. Language is not about being perfect. Language is about being understood. And these 5 phrases? They were the bridge between my fear and his love. Between my English and his English. Between 2 people who could have given up, but didn't. You don't need 1,000 words to save a relationship.
You need 5.
And you need the courage to say them when it's hard. What our kids learned without us teaching. Kids see everything. You think you are hiding it. You think the door is closed. You think they are too busy with their cartoons and their toys and their imaginary worlds.
But they see.
They hear. They feel. I learned this the hard way. One evening, about 8 months after the blue box fight, I was tucking my son Leo into bed.
He was 6 then.
Almost 7. He had his favorite stuffed animal, a worn-out bear named Captain Fluff. And he looked at me with those big eyes that see straight through your skin. Mom, he said, why do you and Daddy fight about shoes? My heart stopped. Not a dramatic stop. A quiet one. The kind where you realize you have been caught. I said, what do you mean? He said, I heard you. That time. When you were both loud. And then Daddy sat outside for a long time. I saw him through the window. He was talking about the Tuesday night. The original fight. The one that started this whole story. He was only 6. I thought he was asleep. I thought the TV was loud enough. I thought wrong. I sat on the edge of his bed. Captain Fluff was squished between us. And I had a choice. I could lie. I could say, oh, that was nothing. I could change the subject. Or I could tell him something real. I chose real. Leo, I said. Sometimes mommies and daddies disagree. That night, I was scared about money. And daddy was hurt about something from when he was a little boy. We both said things we didn't mean. But then we talked. And we said sorry. And we made new rules so we wouldn't fight like that again. He thought about this for a moment. Then he asked the question that changed everything. So when you fight, you still love each other? Yes, I said. We still love each other. The fighting is not the problem. The not talking is the problem. We always talk, even when it is hard. He nodded, hugged Captain Fluff, and said, okay, good night. That was it. 3 minutes. But in those 3 minutes, I realized something terrible and wonderful. Our kids were learning how to love by watching us fight. Not by watching us be perfect, by watching us repair. I started paying attention after that, listening to how Leo played with his younger sister. One day, they were arguing over a red crayon, the only red crayon in the box. Leo wanted it. His sister wanted it. Voices got loud. I was about to step in. Then Leo stopped. He took a breath. And he said, can we pause? I almost choked. He was 6. He had heard me say that phrase 100 times. And now it was his. His sister stared at him. He said, I had it first. But you can have it for 5 minutes. Then I get it back. Can we try something different? She said okay. And they went back to coloring.
No screaming. No tears.
No parent intervention. My 6-year-old had learned conflict resolution from watching his parents argue about shoes. That was the moment I stopped feeling guilty about our fights. Not because I wanted to fight. Because I realized that hiding conflict from children does not protect them. It teaches them that conflict is shameful. That when you disagree, you should pretend. That silence is safer than speaking. But showing them repair? Showing them that 2 people can yell, walk away, make tea, confess their fears, apologize, and try again? That is a gift. That is education. That is love made visible. Here is what I want every parent to hear. You are not damaging your children by having arguments. You are damaging them by having arguments that never get fixed, by slamming doors and staying silent for days, by pretending everything is fine when it is not. Children know when things are not fine. And when you pretend, they learn that feelings are dangerous, that truth is dangerous. But when you fight and then repair, you teach them something extraordinary. You teach them that conflict is normal. That anger is not the end. That love is not the absence of fighting. Love is the commitment to come back. A few months after the crayon incident, Leo asked me another question. We were making pancakes. Sunday morning. The sun was coming through the kitchen window. Mark was still asleep.
Mom, he said.
Why do you and Daddy have fun money? Another question I could have dodged. But I didn't. Because everyone needs money that is just theirs, I said. Daddy likes to buy shoes. I like to buy books and candles. And when we have our own fun money, we do not have to fight about it. So when I grow up, he said, I will have fun money too. And my wife will have fun money. And we will not fight about shoes.
I hope so, I said.
But you will probably fight about something else.
Socks.
Or spoons. Or which way the toilet paper hangs. He laughed. And I laughed. And the pancakes burned a little. But it was worth it. Here is the truth I want to leave with you. Your children are always watching. Not to judge you. To learn from you. They are learning how to be humans by watching you be human. So, do not hide your humanity. Show them your repairs. Show them your apologies. Show them that you can be wrong and still be loved. That is the lesson Leo learned before he turned 7. Not that his parents were perfect, that his parents were brave. Brave enough to fight. Brave enough to come back. Brave enough to say, I am not going anywhere. And that is the kind of love that lasts. Not the love that never breaks. The love that knows how to mend. The American reality no one talks about. Let me tell you something that took me years to understand. Fighting about money in America is different. Not harder or easier. Different. And if you are not from here, you might miss the invisible rules that make money fights so painful. I was not born in the United States. I came here as an adult. And I brought my old money stories with me. Stories from a place where families share one jar, where saving is survival, where spending on yourself is almost shameful. Those stories worked fine where I came from, but in America, they crashed into a wall. The wall is called independence. Americans are raised to believe that money equals freedom, not security. Freedom. The freedom to choose. The freedom to buy what you want without asking. The freedom to be your own person. This is not bad. It is just different. But here's the problem. When two people get married, they have to give up some of that independence. They have to share. They have to talk. They have to ask. And for Americans, asking feels like losing freedom. For me, not asking felt like losing safety. So we were not just fighting about shoes. We were fighting about two different versions of the American dream. His version said, I work hard, so I get to enjoy my money. My version said I work hard, so I never have to be scared again. Neither of us was wrong. But neither of us knew how to say that without sounding like the enemy. Here is the American reality no one puts in the movies. Most couples in the US do not talk about money before they get married. They talk about love. They talk about kids. They talk about where to live.
But money?
Money feels rude. Money feels unromantic. Money feels like you do not trust your partner. So they wait. And then they fight. And then they wonder why the person they love is being so unreasonable. I have watched friends go through this. Good couples. Smart people. They buy a house together before they have ever discussed their credit scores. They have a baby before they agree on how much to save each month. They love each other so much that they assume love is enough. Love is not enough. Love is the beginning. Love is the reason you try. But love does not pay the water bill. Love does not tell you that your partner grew up without shoes. Love does not teach you how to say, I am scared without starting a war. You need skills for that. And in America, no one teaches you those skills. Not in school. Not in church. Not even in pre-marriage counseling, which most couples skip because it feels awkward.
So you learn the hard way.
You learn in the kitchen at 10 o'clock at night with a cold cup of tea and a box of sneakers on the counter. Another American reality. Healthcare is expensive. Childcare is expensive. Rent is expensive. Everything is expensive. And when everything is expensive, every dollar feels loaded. You are not just buying shoes. You are choosing between shoes and a dentist appointment. Between sneakers and summer camp. Between a new video game and a car repair. That pressure makes small fights big. That pressure makes your amygdala scream louder. That pressure makes you forget that you love the person across the table. Mark and I felt that pressure every single month. The first week after rent was due, we felt rich. The third week, we felt poor. The fourth week, we felt desperate. And that cycle made us fight. Not because we were bad people, because we were stressed people. Here is what changed. We stopped pretending that pressure did not exist. We named it. We said, this month is tight. Let us be gentle with each other. We said, I am feeling anxious about money. It is not your fault. It is just the month. Naming the pressure took away its power. Because once you name something, it stops being a monster under the bed and starts being a problem you can solve. Another reality. American culture celebrates the individual. You are supposed to be your own person. You are supposed to have your own money, your own hobbies, your own friends, your own dreams. That is wonderful. But marriage is not about two individuals living parallel lives. Marriage is about two individuals becoming a team.
And team share. Teams talk.
Teams sometimes sacrifice what they want for what the team needs. Mark struggled with this more than I did. Because for him, giving up financial independence felt like going back to being a kid. A kid who had to ask permission. A kid who had no power. His American brain said, I am a man. I make money. I should decide. But marriage does not work that way. Marriage says we make money. We decide together. It took him a long time to accept that. Not because he was stubborn. Because his culture never taught him how to share financial power. His dad did not share with his mom. His friends did not share with their wives. He had no model. So we had to build our own model. From scratch. With fights and tears and stupid rules about $50 heads-ups. That model looked nothing like what either of us grew up with. It was not my parents' one-jar system. It was not his parents' separate account system. It was ours. A hybrid. Shared money for bills and savings. Fun money for freedom. Heads-ups for respect. Sunday check-ins for connection. It was not perfect. It is still not perfect. But it is ours. Here is the positive message I want you to take from this. You do not have to follow anyone else's rules. You do not have to do money the way your parents did, or the way your friends do, or the way some expert on the internet tells you to. You get to invent your own system. A system that fits your wounds and your dreams and your weird little habits. A system that says, I see your fear about money, and I see your need for freedom, and I want to build something that holds both. That is the American reality I wish someone had told me. Not that money fights are inevitable, but that you get to design your own peace. You get to try things, fail, and try again. You get to say, this is not working. Can we try something different? And you get to keep going. Even when it is hard. Especially when it is hard. So, did conflict build our love? We have traveled a long way together in this story. From a Tuesday night fight about $200 sneakers to a kitchen island with cold chamomile tea. From 2 hours of silence that almost broke us to a 6-year-old who learned to say, can we pause? From a blue box on the counter to a swing in the front yard. And now it is time to answer the question that started everything. Can conflict build love?
Yes.
But not the way you think. Conflict does not automatically build love. If you scream and hide and blame and withdraw, conflict will destroy your love. It will turn two people who once held hands into two strangers who share a refrigerator. I have seen it happen. Maybe you have too. But if you do something different, if you fight differently, if you listen, if you pause, if you confess your old wounds instead of defending your position, if you say I am scared instead of you are wrong, if you come back to the kitchen and make the tea, then yes, conflict can build love. It can build a stronger, deeper, more honest love than the one you started with. Here is what I learned. The fire that burns down a forest is the same fire that makes the soil rich for new growth. Conflict is fire. It can destroy. Or it can clear the ground for something better. The difference is not the fire. The difference is what you do after. Mark and I do not fight the way we used to. We still disagree. We still get frustrated. We still have moments when my 12-year-old fear wakes up and screams. But now I know what that voice is. I know it is not the truth.
It is just an old story.
And old stories can be rewritten. Last month, Mark came home with a receipt in his hand. He walked straight to me.
No hiding.
No box on the counter.
He said, I bought something.
It was $130. I am telling you, because it is over 50. I should have texted, but my phone died. Here is the receipt. I looked at the receipt. A new pair of running shoes. Blue ones. The ones I told him to get a year ago. I said, thank you for telling me. And thank you for the receipt. Next time just text. He said, okay. And then he said, I love you. I said, I love you too. That was the whole conversation. 30 seconds. No fight. No fear.
No silence.
Because we had built something together. A bridge. And bridges hold. So here is my answer to the title question. Conflict can build love if you have 3 things. The first thing is curiosity. You have to be curious about your partner's fear, not defensive about your own. When Mark spent money without telling me, my old brain wanted to attack. But I learned to get curious. Why did he do that? What is he afraid of? What is he trying to heal? Curiosity turns an enemy into a human. The second thing is courage. You have to have the courage to share your own fear. Not your anger, your fear. That is harder. Anger feels strong. Fear feels weak. But fear is the truth. And the truth is the only thing that builds real intimacy. I had to tell Mark about my dad losing his job. He had to tell me about the kids laughing at his shoes. Those were not easy conversations, but they were the ones that saved us. The third thing is commitment. You have to commit to staying. Not just when it is easy, when it is hard, when you want to walk out the door, when you want to sleep on the couch, when you want to be right more than you want to be connected.
You stay.
You come back. You try again. That is commitment. And commitment is love made of actions, not feelings. Looking back, I am almost grateful for that Tuesday night fight. Not because it was fun. It was terrible. But because it forced us to get real. It forced us to stop pretending that love means never hurting each other. It forced us to learn the skills we should have learned years before. We bought a house. Not the first one. The third one. It has a swing in the front yard. The kitchen cabinets are still old. The carpet is still ugly. But every Sunday at 7 p.m., we sit at the kitchen table with our phones and our notebook. We check the bank account. We talk about the week. We say what felt good and what felt stressful. And sometimes, when the numbers are tight and we are both tired, Mark reaches across the table and takes my hand. He says, I am not going anywhere. And I believe him, because we have proven it. Through fights and silences and blue boxes and sneakers. Through tears and tea and apologies that came out wrong and then came out right. Through all of it, we stayed. That is what conflict built. Not a perfect marriage. A real one. One where we know each other's wounds and love each other anyway. So if you are watching this and you are in the middle of a fight, if you are sitting in your own kitchen with a cold cup of tea and a heavy heart, if you are wondering whether love is worth the pain, stay.
Pause.
Get curious. Have courage. Make the tea. Open the door. Conflict is not the end of love. It is the beginning of understanding. And understanding is the deepest form of love there is. You just watched a real marriage survive a real fight about money. Not a theory. Not a scripted scene from a movie.
2 people.
1 kitchen. $200. And a choice that changed everything. Here is the question I want to leave burning in your mind. If conflict can build love, what have you been avoiding? What conversation have you been swallowing? What truth have you been hiding behind silence? What old wound have you been dressing up as anger?
Because here is what I know now.
The fight you are afraid to have might be the very thing that saves you. Not from your partner. From yourself. From the story you have been telling yourself about love, about money, about your own worth. Mark and I almost gave up. We almost let silence win. But we didn't. And that is why I am here, telling you this story in this language that I am still learning, one imperfect word at a time. You are learning too.
English. Love. Courage.
They're the same muscle, and muscles grow when they are stretched. So here is my invitation to you. Do not just watch this video. Live it. Have that hard conversation. Say that scary sentence. Pause before you attack. Repair after you break. And come back tomorrow to learn more. Because this channel is not about perfect English. It is about real life, real fights, real love, and real words that heal.
Subscribe now.
Hit the bell. The next story will change the way you see yourself. I promise. See you in the next video.